The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting Europa detected the signal at 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Communications Officer Sarah Chen nearly choked on her morning coffee as the translation algorithms finished their work, converting the alien transmission into something that made her blood run cold. Emergency broadcast to any receiving civilizations. This is Captain Zixtha of the Catherian merchant vessel Harmony's Edge. We are under attack by Vraxi Syndicate pirates. Our defensive systems are failing. Crew of 43 souls aboard, including 12 younglings. Please, if anyone receives this transmission. We are located in the Kepler 442 system, third planet's orbit. We cannot escape. We will not survive much longer. The transmission cut to static, but not before Chen heard something that made her stomach twist. The unmistakable sound of weapons fire and terrified screams in the background. Chen's fingers flew across her console, routing the signal directly to Fleet Command on Mars. Within minutes, her secure comm unit buzzed with an incoming priority transmission. Admiral Harrison's weathered face appeared on her screen, his expression grim. Chen, I need you to run that signal through every verification protocol we have. Cross-reference it with our intelligence databases. I want to know everything about this Catherian ship and these Vraxi pirates. Already on it, sir, Chen replied, her hands dancing across multiple displays simultaneously. The signal's authentic. No signs of tampering or artificial generation. The Catherians are listed in our first contact database. They're a peaceful trader species, barely past their industrial age when it comes to military technology. Their ships are designed for commerce, not combat. Admiral Harrison's jaw tightened. And the Vraxi? Chen's expression darkened. Known slavers and pirates, sir. They've been operating in the Outer Rim sectors for decades. Intelligence suggests they specifically target weaker species for forced labor and, worse, their ships are heavily armed converted freighters. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, staring at something off-screen. Chen could see the conflict in his eyes, the weight of making a decision that could start an interstellar incident or condemn innocent beings to death. Admiral, Chen said softly, there's something else. I've been monitoring chatter on the civilian networks. Word is already spreading about the distress call. The public is demanding action. In where given, Harrison nodded grimly. He'd seen the reports flooding in from Earth's news networks. Protesters were already gathering outside government buildings, holding signs demanding humanity intervene. Social media was exploding with calls for immediate action. The phrase, "never again," was trending across every platform. It had been only 50 years since first contact, when humanity discovered they weren't alone in the universe. What they found was a galaxy full of species that had grown soft and complacent, used to peace enforced by ancient treaties and mutual economic dependence. But those same treaties meant that when pirates and slavers emerged from the lawless regions of space, most civilized species had no means to respond effectively. Humanity was different. Earth was what the galactic community had come to call a death world. A planet so hostile that its dominant species had evolved not just to survive, but to fight and win against impossible odds. While other species had spent millennia in peace, humans had spent theirs at war, developing technologies and tactics that made even advanced alien civilizations nervous. Admiral Harrison made his decision. Chen, patch me through to Fleet Admiral Rodriguez at Terra Station. Priority Alpha clearance. Within seconds, Fleet Admiral Rodriguez's image appeared alongside Harrison's on Chen's screen. The highest-ranking military officer in human space looked tired, but her eyes were sharp and alert. Maria, we have a situation, Harrison began, and quickly outlined the Catherian distress call. Rodriguez listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each detail. When Harrison finished, she was quiet for several heartbeats before responding. How long since the initial transmission? Chen checked her chronometer. 18 minutes, ma'am. Distance to Kepler 442? 47 light-years from Earth, ma'am. 23 from the nearest human outpost. Rodriguez's fingers drummed against her desk as she calculated. Even our fastest ships would take weeks to reach them using conventional FTL. By then, "Ma'am," Chen interrupted, then caught herself. "Sorry, Admiral, but I've been monitoring follow-up transmissions. The Catherian ship is still broadcasting. They're fighting back, but they won't last long." Harrison leaned forward. "Maria, we both know what needs to happen here. The question is whether we're prepared for the consequences." Rodriguez stared at him for a long moment, understanding the implication. Humanity had treaties with dozens of species. Agreements that were supposed to prevent exactly this kind of unilateral military action. But those same species were also the ones who consistently voted against stronger anti-piracy measures, preferring to maintain their comfortable illusion of galactic peace. "The President will never approve a full fleet deployment without congressional authorization," Rodriguez said finally. "That could take days we don't have." "Then we don't ask for permission," Harrison replied quietly. The silence stretched between the three humans as they contemplated what he was suggesting. Chen felt her pulse quicken as she realized she was witnessing a moment that would likely change the course of human-alien relations forever. "There is another option," Chen said hesitantly. Both admirals turned to look at her, and she swallowed nervously before continuing. "The Experimental Rapid Deployment Protocol. Project Longshot." Rodriguez's eyes widened. "That program is still in testing phases. We've never attempted a deployment of that magnitude. But it would work," Harrison said, his voice gaining conviction. "A small, fast response force. Get there, evaluate the situation, and act accordingly. We're not declaring war on anyone. We're responding to a humanitarian crisis." Chen pulled up the relevant files on her secondary screen. "The nearest Longshot-equipped vessels are the destroyer, Retribution, and cruisers New Tokyo and Sahara Wind. They're currently on patrol in the Proxima sector. 3 ships against unknown pirate forces," Rodriguez mused. "It's risky. It's what we do," Harrison replied simply. "It's what humans have always done." Rodriguez was quiet for another long moment, weighing the political ramifications against the moral imperative. Finally, she nodded sharply. "Chen, patch me through to Captain Morrison aboard the Retribution. Emergency authentication code Foxtrot 77 Alpha." The communication system chirped as it established a secure connection to the human patrol fleet. Captain Morrison's image appeared on screen, a stern-faced woman with graying hair and scars that spoke of hard-fought battles against pirates in the outer systems. "Admiral Rodriguez, what's the situation?" Rodriguez quickly briefed Morrison on the Catherian distress call and the proposed response. Morrison listened with the focused attention of a career military officer, asking pointed questions about enemy strength and rules of engagement. "How many civilian lives are we talking about?" Morrison asked when the briefing concluded. 43 confirmed aboard the merchant vessel," Chen replied. "Unknown how many they might have already captured from other ships." Morrison's expression hardened. Pirates who targeted civilians were something every human military officer took personally. The scars of humanity's own violent past made them uniquely sensitive to the suffering of innocents. "Admiral, my ships can be ready for long-shot deployment in 30 minutes. We'll need final authorization for weapons-free status." Rodriguez glanced at Harrison, who nodded grimly. "Captain Morrison, you are authorized to use all necessary force to protect civilian lives and neutralize pirate threats. Rules of engagement are weapons-free upon confirmation of hostile action against non-combatants." "Understood, ma'am. One more thing. Do we know anything about Catherian physiology, in case we need to provide medical assistance?" Chen quickly accessed the species database. "Oxygen-nitrogen breathers. Similar atmospheric requirements to humans. They're smaller and more fragile than us, but compatible with our medical facilities. I'm transmitting the full biological profile to your medical teams now." 9. Morrison nodded crisply. "We'll be ready for anything." Retribution out. As Morrison's image faded, Admiral Rodriguez turned back to Harrison and Chen. "This is it, then. We're committed." Chen felt a mixture of excitement and terror as she realized what they had just set in motion. Humanity was about to announce to the galaxy that they were no longer content to watch from the sidelines while innocents suffered. The political fallout would be enormous, but right now, 43 alien beings were fighting for their lives in the cold vacuum of space. "Admiral, Chen said quietly. There's one more thing. I've been monitoring the Catherian transmissions, and I think I understand why they sent that distress call on open channels instead of just to their own government. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Go on. Their government doesn't have a military capable of reaching them in time. None of their allied species do either. They were literally calling out to anyone in the galaxy who might be able to help. Chen paused, her voice growing softer. They've heard the stories about us. About what humans can do when innocent people are in danger. Rodriguez stared at the tactical display showing the location of Kepler 442, calculating distances and deployment times. Then let's make sure those stories are true. Chen, I want constant monitoring of that distress channel. The moment we lose their signal. I understand, ma'am. As the Admiral signed off, and Chen returned to her monitoring duties, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would be remembered as the day humanity stopped being just another member of the galactic community and became something else entirely. Something the galaxy hadn't seen in centuries. A species willing to fight for strangers. To risk everything for the simple principle that the strong should protect the weak. In the deep black of space, 3 human warships were already altering course. Their crews preparing for a battle that would echo across the stars. The age of human intervention was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Diana Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching her crew perform the final preparations for humanity's most ambitious military deployment to date. Around her, officers moved with practiced efficiency, their faces showing the focused calm that came from years of training and combat experience. Engineering, report status on Longshot drive systems, Morrison called out. All green across the board, Captain, came the reply from Chief Engineer Santos. Quantum tunneling arrays are synchronized and ready for extended deployment. We're looking at a 72-hour transit to Kepler 442, Morrison nodded, feeling a familiar mixture of anticipation and dread. 72 hours was impossibly fast by normal standards. Conventional FTL would have taken weeks to cover the same distance, but Longshot technology pushed the boundaries of physics to their breaking point, creating temporary quantum tunnels through folded spacetime. It was dangerous, experimental, and exactly the kind of impossible technology that humanity had become famous for developing. Communication with New Tokyo and Sahara Wind? Morrison asked her communications officer. Both ships report ready for deployment, Captain. Captain Yamamoto sends his compliments and requests permission to take point position during the jump. Morrison almost smiled at that. Kenji Yamamoto had been her closest friend since their academy days, and his ship New Tokyo was the fastest vessel in the fleet. He always wanted to be first into a fight. Granted, signal both ships, we deploy in 10 minutes. As her crew made final preparations, Morrison reviewed the tactical situation one more time. They were jumping blind into a potentially hostile system, with no real intelligence on enemy strength or capabilities. Under normal circumstances, it would be considered suicide. But these weren't normal circumstances. The Kytherian distress calls had been growing weaker over the past hour, punctuated by increasingly desperate reports of hull breaches and failing life support systems. Each transmission made it clear that time was running out for the 43 souls aboard the merchant vessel. Captain, called Lieutenant Zhang from the sensor station, I'm picking up something interesting from our intelligence feeds. Morrison moved to Zhang's console, studying the data streams flowing across multiple screens. What do you have? Cross-reference transmissions from the Kytherian ship with our database on Vraxi pirate operations. The attacking force appears to be the Bloodwing Raider Group. 3 converted cargo haulers with military-grade weapons. Morrison studied the tactical assessment. The Bloodwing Raiders were known for their brutality and their preference for taking prisoners rather than simply destroying ships. It made them more dangerous in some ways, since they had to board their targets to secure cargo and captives. Any good news in that assessment? Zhang's expression was grim. Their ships are tough and well-armed, but they're still converted civilian vessels. Our destroyers should outclass them individually, and our weapons technology is significantly more advanced. Morrison nodded. Human weapons technology had progressed rapidly since first contact. driven by the uncomfortable realization that they lived in a galaxy where stronger species regularly preyed upon weaker ones. While most aliens had spent centuries in peaceful trade, humanity had continued developing increasingly sophisticated methods of killing things. 5 minutes to deployment, called the navigation officer. Morrison activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. In 5 minutes, we will be making humanity's first long-range rescue deployment using experimental drive technology. Our mission is simple: save the lives of 43 innocent beings who called out to the galaxy for help. She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew. Every face showed the same determined expression, the same willingness to risk everything for strangers they'd never met. I know some of you are wondering about the political implications of what we're doing. Let me be clear. We are not starting a war. We are not invading anyone's territory. We are responding to a distress call in accordance with the most basic principles of sapient decency. If that makes us criminals in the eyes of the Galactic Council, then so be it. Morrison could feel the mood on the bridge shift as her words sank in. This wasn't just another patrol mission or pirate hunt. This was humanity announcing to the galaxy that they would no longer stand by while innocents suffered. 2 minutes to deployment, came the call from navigation. Morrison settled into her command chair, feeling the familiar pre-battle tension settle over the bridge. Around her, officers ran through final system checks and prepared for what could be the most important 72 hours in human history. "Captain," Zhang called out, receiving final transmission from the Catherian vessel. Morrison's blood chilled as the translation came through the speakers. Captain Zixtha's voice was weak and filled with pain, but still determined. "This is Harmony's Edge to any ships responding to our distress call. Pirates have breached our hull. They are boarding us now. We will fight as long as we can. But, please, if anyone is coming, hurry. The younglings are frightened." The transmission cut to static, replaced by the ominous silence of space. Morrison felt something cold and dangerous settle in her chest, the same feeling she'd had during the Titan colony rescue, when pirates had taken hostages and threatened to execute them one by one. The same feeling that had made her career in hunting down the worst predators the galaxy had to offer. "All ships," she said into the communication array, her voice deadly calm. "This is Morrison. We are weapons-free upon arrival. Anyone who harms those civilians will not be given the opportunity to surrender." Captain Yamamoto's voice crackled through from the new Tokyo. "Understood. Diana, my crew is ready to show these pirates why humans have a reputation in this galaxy." Captain Al-Rashid from the Sahara Wind was equally blunt. "We copy retribution. Time to remind the galaxy why you don't mess with innocent people when humans are watching." Morrison felt a fierce pride in her fellow captains and their crews. These were people who understood that some things were worth fighting for, regardless of the consequences. "Deployment in 30 seconds, called navigation. All ships report ready." Morrison gripped her armrests as the ship's quantum tunneling arrays began to charge. The long-shot drive was an evolution of humanity's earlier FTL technology, pushed to theoretical limits that most alien species considered impossibly dangerous. It worked by creating artificial wormholes through folded space-time, allowing near-instantaneous travel across vast distances. The catch was that maintaining the tunnel required enormous amounts of energy and placed tremendous stress on ship systems. A single miscalculation could scatter a vessel across several light-years of space. Most species had experimented with similar technology but abandoned it as too risky. Humans, naturally, had perfected it. "All ships, prepare for quantum tunnel deployment," Morrison announced. "See you on the other side." The bridge lights dimmed as massive amounts of power flowed to the drive systems. Morrison felt the familiar sensation of reality bending around them as space-time folded in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Then, in a flash of impossible light, 3 human warships vanished from normal space and began racing through quantum tunnels toward a distant star system, where innocent beings fought for their lives against predators who had never faced an enemy like humanity. Behind them, word of the deployment was already spreading through human space. News networks were broadcasting continuous coverage of what they were calling the Catherian rescue. Social media exploded with support for the mission, while government officials scrambled to manage the diplomatic fallout. On Earth, crowds gathered outside government buildings, not in protest this time, but in support. Signs reading, "Never leave anyone behind," and "Humanity helps," appeared in dozens of languages. Children drew pictures of human ships rescuing alien families. The entire species seemed to have unified around a single principle, that the strong had an obligation to protect the weak, regardless of species or politics. In alien capitals across the galaxy, emergency sessions were being called to address humanity's unilateral action. Some species expressed outrage at what they saw as a violation of galactic law. Others privately admitted relief that someone was finally willing to act against the pirate problem that had plagued outer system trade routes for decades. But in the cold vacuum of space around Kepler 442's third planet, none of the political maneuvering mattered. What mattered was that 3 human warships were racing through folded space-time toward a battle that would determine whether 43 innocent beings lived or died. And for the first time in their long history of being victims, the Kytherians had allies who were willing to fight for them. The quantum tunnels carried the human fleet through dimensions that existed between the normal laws of physics, where time and distance meant nothing, and the only constant was humanity's determination to reach those who had called for help. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when predators encountered a species that had evolved specifically to hunt predators. Morrison settled back in her command chair and began planning the rescue operation, her mind already calculating firing solutions and boarding procedures. Around her, the crew of the Retribution prepared for battle with the calm efficiency of people who had found their purpose in protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The age of human intervention had begun, and it was racing toward Kepler 442 at impossible speeds through the human fleet materialized in the Kepler 442 system in a cascade of quantum energy that lit up sensor arrays across 3 planets. Captain Morrison felt the familiar disorientation of quantum tunnel transition fade as normal spacetime reasserted itself around the Retribution. "Status report," she called out, her voice cutting through the bridge activity as her crew rapidly assessed their new environment. "All systems nominal," reported Chief Santos from engineering. "Quantum arrays are stable and ready for combat operations." Lieutenant Zhang's fingers flew across his sensor console. "I'm reading multiple contacts in the 3rd planet's orbital zone. 3 large vessels in formation, around a smaller ship. The smaller vessel appears to be dead in space." Morrison's jaw tightened. They'd made the journey in record time, but had they arrived too late? Life signs. Zhang worked frantically to penetrate the interference from damaged ship systems. "Faint readings from the merchant vessel, but the signal is weak and sporadic. The 3 larger ships are definitely the Vraxi Raiders. Energy signatures match intelligence profiles for the Bloodwing group." Captain Yamamoto's voice crackled through from the New Tokyo. "Diana, my tactical officer is reading weapon signatures on those pirate ships. They've got military-grade plasma batteries and missile systems." "Confirmed," added Captain Al-Rashid from the Sahara Wind. "These aren't your typical pirate conversions. Someone's been supplying them with serious hardware." Morrison studied the tactical display as the computer painted a picture of the battle zone. The Kytherian merchant vessel Harmony's Edge hung motionless in space, its hull scarred with weapon strikes and showing multiple breach points. The 3 Vraxi ships had formed a loose perimeter around it, clearly in the process of boarding operations. "Zhang, any communication from the merchant vessel?" "Negative, Captain. Their communication array appears to be completely dead. But I am picking up some very faint emergency beacon transmissions. Someone's still alive over there." "They're Maxis." "Negative, Captain." Morrison felt the familiar cold anger settle over her as she realized what they were looking at. The pirates hadn't just attacked the ship. They were taking their time with it. Probably sorting through cargo and deciding which crew members were worth keeping as slaves. "All ships, this is Morrison. We have confirmed hostile pirate vessels engaged in boarding operations against a civilian ship. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Our primary objective is the rescue of Kytherian survivors." Morrison paused, studying the enemy formation. The pirates had positioned themselves well, using the merchant vessel as partial cover, while maintaining fields of fire against any approaching ships. It was a defensive position that suggested experience and tactical thinking. "New Tokyo, You're fastest and most maneuverable. I want you to sweep wide and come at them from the starboard side. Draw their attention and their fire. Sahara Wind, take the port approach and focus on the largest raider. That's probably their command ship. Retribution will punch straight through the middle and attempt to dock with the merchant vessel. Copy that, Yamamoto replied. Beginning flanking maneuver now. Sahara Wind moving to port position, Al-Rashid confirmed. We'll give them something to think about. As the human ships separated and began their attack runs, Morrison watched the tactical display with the focused attention of a predator stalking prey. The pirates were about to learn what happened when they attracted the attention of a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare. Captain, Zhang called out. The raiders are reacting to our approach. They're detaching from the merchant vessel and moving to intercept. Morrison smiled coldly. Good. The further they get from the civilian ship, the more freely we can engage. The lead Vraxi raider opened fire first, sending streams of plasma energy toward the approaching New Tokyo. Captain Yamamoto's ship danced through the incoming fire with an elegance that made Morrison proud of human engineering. The New Tokyo returned fire with her forward particle beam arrays, carving glowing scars across the raider's hull. Sahara Wind engaging the command vessel, Al-Rashid reported. They're tougher than expected, but our weapons are cutting through their armor. Morrison watched the battle unfold on her tactical display, noting the way the pirate ships moved. They were well coordinated and properly equipped, but they fought like criminals rather than soldiers. Their tactics focused on intimidation and overwhelming force against helpless victims, not on facing an enemy that could fight back effectively. Captain, Zhang reported. I'm reading massive internal explosions aboard the merchant vessel. The pirates may be destroying evidence, or eliminating witnesses. Morrison's expression went arctic. Not on my watch. Helm, full power to engines. We're going in hard and fast. The Retribution surged forward, her massive engines pushing the destroyer toward the battle zone at speeds that would have terrified most alien ship designers. Morrison felt the deck vibrate under her feet as the ship's weapons systems came online, targeting arrays locking onto the nearest pirate vessel. Incoming missiles, Zhang called out. The command ship is launching everything they've got at us. Point defense systems engage, Morrison ordered. Around the Retribution, automated weapons systems came to life, filling space with precisely targeted energy beams that intercepted the incoming missiles in brilliant explosions of light and debris. Distance to merchant vessel, 2,000 kilometers and closing, reported the navigation officer. Morrison activated the ship's communication array and broadcast on all frequencies in the local area, including the emergency channels the pirates would be monitoring. Vraxi vessels. This is Captain Diana Morrison of the United Earth ship Retribution. You are engaged in piracy against civilian vessels in violation of galactic law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came back in accented but understandable galactic standard. Human ship, you have no authority in this system. Withdraw or we will destroy you as we destroyed the Catherian ship. Morrison's voice was deadly calm when she replied, Wrong answer. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their engines and weapons systems. I want those ships disabled, not destroyed. We may need prisoners for questioning. Targeting solutions locked in. Captain, fire. The Retribution's main guns spoke with the voice of human engineering perfection, sending precisely aimed streams of energy into the pirate formation. The nearest raider shuddered as its engine compartments exploded in sequence, leaving the ship drifting helplessly in space. New Tokyo has disabled the second raider, Yamamoto reported. Their weapons are down and they're leaking atmosphere. Sahara Wind engaging the command vessel, Al-Rashid added. They're trying to run, but we're faster. Morrison watched with satisfaction as the human fleet systematically dismantled the pirate force. It had taken less than 15 minutes from first contact to complete victory, and that included time spent being careful not to damage the merchant vessel. Zhang, any response from the Catherian ship? Wait, Captain, I'm getting something. Very weak emergency transmission. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a barely audible voice speaking in translated Catherian. This is This is Captain Zeekstha of the Harmony's Edge. Are those human ships? Morrison felt a surge of relief at hearing the alien captain's voice. Captain Zeekstha. This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel. Retribution. We received your distress call and came as quickly as possible. What's your status? There was a long pause before the Catherian replied, and Morrison could hear emotion in the alien's voice despite the translation software. Captain Morrison. We had given up hope. The pirates. They boarded us hours ago. We fought them in the corridors, but we lost many crew members. There are 17 of us left, including 6 younglings. Morrison's expression hardened at the confirmation that 26 innocent beings had been killed by the pirates, but she forced her voice to remain calm and reassuring. Captain, we're moving to dock with your vessel now. We have medical facilities and trained personnel standing by. Can your ship support atmosphere? Barely, Zeekstha replied. We have sealed the major breaches, but life support is failing. The younglings are in the emergency shelter, but it won't hold much longer. Morrison turned to her engineering officer. Santos, how quickly can we establish a docking tube connection? Give me 10 minutes, Captain, and we'll have them connected to our atmosphere and power systems. As the Retribution maneuvered alongside the damaged Catherian vessel, Morrison found herself thinking about the larger implications of what they had just done. Humanity had just conducted its first unilateral military intervention in alien space, acted without permission from any government or galactic authority, and done it all to save the lives of beings they had never met. Captain, Zong called out, I'm reading movement from the disabled pirate ships. Looks like they're trying to restart their engines. Morrison's voice was ice cold. Communications. Open a channel to all pirate vessels. When the connection was established, Morrison spoke with the authority of someone who had just demonstrated exactly what human military technology could do. Vraxi pirates, this is your only warning. You will power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to escape or resist will result in the complete destruction of your vessels. You killed innocent people today, and you will answer for those crimes. The pirates, faced with ships they couldn't outrun or outfight, complied. As boarding parties from all 3 human ships moved to secure the pirate vessels and search for additional survivors, Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched her crew work to save Catherian lives. Medical teams were already moving through the docking tube, treating wounded aliens with the same care they would show human casualties. Captain, reported Dr. Chen, the ship's chief medical officer. The Catherians are in rough shape, but they're responding well to treatment. The younglings are frightened but unharmed. Captain Zeekstha insists on thanking you personally. Morrison nodded. Have him brought to the bridge when he's able to move safely. As word of the successful rescue spread through human space and beyond, Morrison realized that they had crossed a line today. Humanity had announced to the galaxy that they would no longer be passive observers when innocent people were threatened. The political consequences would be enormous. But right now, 17 Catherian beings were alive because 3 human ships had been willing to risk everything to help strangers. Captain Zeekstha appeared on the bridge 20 minutes later, supported by human medical staff but insisting on walking under his own power. The Catherian was smaller than Morrison had expected, barely reaching her shoulder, with large eyes that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and gratitude. Captain Morrison, he said in carefully pronounced galactic standard, I do not have words in any language to express what your people have done for us today. Morrison studied the alien captain, seeing in his face the same mixture of relief and determination that she'd seen in human survivors of pirate attacks. Captain Zeekstha, you called for help, and we answered. That's what civilized beings do for each other. The Catherian's large eyes filled with what Morrison realized were tears. In all our history, no species has ever crossed the galaxy to help strangers. The young ones, they ask if humans are heroes from the old stories. Morrison felt something shift inside her as she looked at this grateful alien and thought about the 6 young Catherians who were alive because humanity had decided to act. Tell them, she said quietly, that humans believe some things are worth fighting for, and that innocent people should never have to face monsters alone. As the human fleet began the journey back to civilized space with their rescued passengers and captured pirates, News of the Kytherian rescue was already spreading across the galaxy. Some species condemned humanity's unilateral action, but many more began to wonder what it would be like to have allies who would actually fight for you when the monsters came calling. The age of human intervention had begun with the sound of weapons fire and ended with the tears of grateful survivors. And across the galaxy, other innocent species began to hope that maybe, just maybe, they no longer had to face the darkness alone, dark spaces between stars,